Welcome to yet another episode of the YouGa Podcast. Today I've got our very special guest, Raweena, here again. And we are going to delve into some other bodies that you may or may not be aware of, but I'm sure you've experienced. And we're going to take it from your conscious mind deeper into your subconscious and just make it very practical.
So absolutely, we got so much love from our last podcast, and we're so grateful for your love and your energy and for joining us. So yeah, take that coffee break, sit down. Life is hard, whatever stresses you're going through, whatever trauma it is. I know, Praveena, there's been times where I've had nowhere else to go and I've just like literally sat in the car and cried because you don't want the world to see your tears. And that's a trauma response.
Yes.
And so, yeah, whether you're doing that, just sitting in your car or I don't know, doing house cleaning because you don't want to do the real things. We see you. We get it.
Yeah. It's only when I have, big tasks that I really should be doing, that's the times when my pantry gets cleaned out. We're all sometimes going through avoidance. And I think it's really important to actually do some of this inner work before it comes to that point where we need to lock ourselves in the car and cry as a release. Like, we have certain pockets of time that we allocate to controlled release, where we actually spend time to process these emotions,
Totally.
process these thoughts, and just release it before it explodes out in the form of tears or, in the form of harsh words when you're not meaning to. I think there's a lot of power in that.
Absolutely. And I think just having some strategies in place as well. And I know definitely from my personal perspective, when we talk about the body, our audiences, everyone can relate to, the age old saying fight or flight. We learn, our body knows to either fight or flee.
Or freeze.
But then when your body is so used to being in that fighting warrior modality, because you don't know when you're going to be attacked. So like forever, like that's all your body is doing, fighting, because to survive. And then you go through a separation or some other trauma, some other grief. And you've got all of this adrenaline pumping through your body. And I know, every time, I'd get a text message or the lawyer's letter, that absolutely drained feeling, and that, when you said the gut,
visceral level.
Yeah, that like you can just, your body just is telling you like, this is trauma. This is like, traumatic. Like, so the body knows. And then you get so used to being in that fight or flight, then I think to then go back to where you can, I guess what I'm trying to say is where you can control it. What you were saying is requires work.
It does. And I think this is some of the most important work that you can do, the inner work. We're always focused on the external, and the only work that we can relate to is whatever is giving us, financial reward, immediate financial reward. But if you really take a step back and look at inner work as also another type of work, because when you actually invest time and energy into doing this work on yourself, it is going to multifold give you like even in terms of financial reward, because imagine if you're able to think clearly, clear off the mental fog, talk kindly to your employees or your bosses or whoever you're dealing with in a work scenario, and you bring your best self to work every day, take minimal amount of sick leaves, and your productivity increases by 50%. That is actual financial reward, but I don't think a lot of people see it in that way.
No, because there is definitely research out there that says that when we are constantly, our bodies are constantly in that fight mode, and as you were saying with that brain fog, we will end up making errors.
Correct.
Whether it's work, driving, just forgetting little things, which will then create that additional stress, because the last thing you want is your work life to get disturbed, because as we know, things are expensive, and if that's how we're protecting our family and getting by, and because of this things that are happening in our bodies, we're not in fear of losing our job, like that's crazy.
That's right. And that's why I wanted to really highlight the concept of the 7 bodies that's got a yogic background. And I think understanding this has been a total game changer in the way I look at things and how I operate. And, my svadhyaya, this self-study, this reflection on yourself, it's just understanding this concept of 7 bodies that I wanted to shine a bit of light on. We're all aware of the physical body. We can all see this is something that we can relate with, because you can actually see, feel it, and you can engage through it through all 5 of your senses, your sight, touch, smell, all of those. It feels real to you. But there's 6 other bodies that people don't really pay attention to, or they may know its existence or feel its existence, but they can't put a finger on it.
Yes, they can't tune into it because we haven't learned.
Exactly.
Like we've learned the ABC or the multiplication, but I don't think at school, we do not get taught, oh, come on, kids, let's learn to get in tune with our bodies. Like, we don't learn those skills. So we go through life. I mean, we might have all of those skills to make us thrive. But then if we're not thriving,
Yeah. And you're exactly right. This is the secret to thrive, not just survive. So if you're ready to take 2025 to thriving level, not just surviving level, pay attention, because we're going to plant some seeds in your head that is going to be the game changer. Trust us. Yeah. So coming back to 7 bodies, physical body. So if you look after yourself, you fuel your physical body, putting in the right food in it, looking after it, practicing daily hygiene on a physical sense, you're going to be looking after your physical body. But then there's other elements as well. So the deeper one is the emotions body. So this is one that people generally don't see as an actual body or this part of your aura that you have. And I just love going back to Bessel van den Kolk's book, The Body Keeps Score. Science is catching up to spirituality. So there is so much science that can prove that there are trapped emotions in our body. And this emotions body is generally something that's formed when you are between 7 to 14 years of age. But then again, we can hold on to something as an adult that happened 2 days ago if we haven't processed and let go of it. But we'll go deeper in that. Let's first give you a full overview. Then we've got our logic body. Other people might call this your left brain. So that logical thinking center, that is an entire body. And the reason we say it's a body is because it's an aspect of your being. It's just as important as your physical body, because your logic mind can control some of your decisions. So it deserves its own space, its own term, its own recognition.
And if they say the school system, what we go through, society, that's what we focused on.
Correct.
So
it's just memorize the alphabets, the
Mhm.
times tables, and
off you go. Like, go to university or trade school or, whatever else you want your kids to do, or the occupation that you might be working in. That's all we've learned.
Correct. Yeah. It's just the schooling system. And while a system is good because it gives structure, I guess we have got to also identify that there's all these more layers of us. So then there's the intuition body. So, intuition is something, if you had to point to your physical body, it'd be at somewhere up here. So when I say here, I don't mean on the surface of my forehead. If you take a stick and poke it, or a laser beam, let's say, and poke it straight through my forehead, and one from the top, and where it connects in the middle, where it intersects, that's where your pineal gland is, which is the center for your intuition. So in all the yogic texts, they describe this as amrut. That's released. So that's basically the juices that's released from your pineal gland. In other words, if you want to look at it from an evidence-based,
or the third eye, as some people might, more popularly in books and things, it's called the third eye, which is in the middle. Yes.
Yeah. The first image that pops up for me is that of Shiva, Lord Shiva, with this very prominent third eye that opens up, because he's a symbolism of someone who's very tuned into the third eye. Yeah. And then there's all these other bodies. And then we come to a cosmic body. So the empaths will relate to this. When you just feel what another person is feeling. And it's not on a superficial level of trying to read their body language or, just reading through their words. It is something that you connect with at a feelings level, an empathetic level.
And I think caregivers, these days, I think we're, in that 40s age group where, our parents, are sort of getting into that older, age. So we kind of, in that kind of, where we're still caregiving to our kids, but then on some level we're caregiving to our parents as well.
Because it's a cycle.
It's a cycle, because they're getting older. And I know, there's lots of caregivers who work, aged care workers, nurses, even parents who have kids with neurodivergent, needs and things like that. It is draining. It is like a lot of work, and they have to, tailor things to. So whatever the caregivers, and I know I attended a DV workshop yesterday, and the frontline workers who see day in and day out, like, counsel and, provide safe places for women and children fleeing these situations, they have such a high rotation of workers, because there's only and it's only the empaths who can do this work.
Correct.
And even then they would have like a certain cycle. So there's only so much that the body can take before it just goes, I can't, I mentally, physically can't do this anymore. So something what you're talking about is perfect. Yeah.
And that's the thing. You don't have to identify as an empath to recognize that this ability lies as an innate intelligence in your body. So this empathetic body is something that every human being has. Some are just tuned into a bit more than others. That's the real point that we want to make, that all of these 7 bodies is something that everyone has within you. And just imagine the quality of your decisions in life, whether it's a small decision on what you're going to eat tonight or something big about how you're going to take your career path. If you engage all these 7 bodies into your decision-making process, that is what's going to lead you towards authenticity and living a purposeful life. Let that sink in for a few moments. Yes. And that is why we're sharing this wisdom, this lived experience of having integrated and still integrating. It's going to be a continuous process. of these 7 bodies. So we've touched upon some of them that's more personal. There's some that's connection with others, with the universe. So many depths, life is not 2D. It's meant to be multi-dimensional. We're 7D multi-dimensional beings.
No, exactly. And when we talk about the seven, I think the 7 bodies, we don't have to be, as you said, we don't have to get to that stage of sort of, sitting there feeling helpless. Because, like one person's capacity for taking trauma is very different to another person's capacity. So when we say, pain threshold, like, some people say, oh, you must have a high pain threshold because, we're like, yeah, that's fine. It didn't hurt me at all. And then other people, it's like, oh my God, that was just bad.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So even though I guess we have, everyone who probably knows this, that the grieving cycle that we have, for anything in life, whether it's a loss of a relationship or a loss of a job, or, it can be anything, it can be anything that has kind of put a stop in how we were kind of going, like it's a roadblock, right? So our intention, our pathway was to go in this direction, and all of a sudden we've hit a T-junction, or, we don't know where we're headed. So we are following that same cycle of that trauma where, we're going to deny it, we're going to, feel anger and all of that. We might go back, like, we might be looping around it. And, some people can be looping in there for years and years.
Or even lifetimes.
Or even a lifetime, exactly. If we don't just put a stop and go, no, like, I need to do something.
Yeah, and I think that is such a deep topic and very important as well, trauma. Because like you said, Raweena, everyone experiences trauma differently. Like the same situation might be extremely traumatic to someone, whereas other people might just brush it off and, move on with their lives for the same thing that happened. And that's why I think, tying it back to the 7 bodies, it's important to understand that, because if you haven't done some work on the emotion body, for example, let's say you have trapped emotions in all these different parts of your body, that's when it might be more traumatic for a person in that instance, when they've got trapped emotions in their body. Whereas someone who's sitting and meditating regularly releases these sankharas and, keeps that emotion body clean by processing and releasing these emotions that no longer serve them, they are someone who's going to be able to just brush it off and walk on.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same with anything in life, isn't it? Even if it's like running a 10K or 1 kilometer cross country, if you've been practicing every single day,
yes,
when you run that run, you're going to be fit. You're going to be breathing normally. You will be doing it according to science, I guess, or how you should be running. You're not going to have those injuries, and you're not going to be sore the next day. I mean, a little bit sore, I guess, but not someone who has not practiced at all and kind of rocks up on the day and goes, you know what, I'm just going to do the 10K. Or so imagine that person, huffing and puffing and kind of going, oh my God, I feel like I'm dying. And yeah, and then the next day, or even not the next day, it'll be like probably till a week. They'll be complaining
exactly
about how sore they are, and or God forbid they injure themselves. Then it's a longer.
That is such an important topic that you raised about injury and resilience, because, just picture that same marathon that Raweena's talking about, and just imagine everyone lining up at the start line, yeah? And I don't know if you've done this before, but I love observing people. And I just go and observe everywhere because I think this is one of the things that's taught me a lot about life and people in general. So just imagine all these people lined up at the start line at the marathon. And let's say you see this really buffed up guy with really big biceps and, all these toned muscles everywhere. There might be another person who is a bit on the curvier side, or there might be someone else who's sort of in between. And you see they're very focused. They're not talking to everyone. They're just looking ahead. They're doing all their stretches, preparing for the marathon, doing all the lunges. Like, which of these people do you think is going to fare the best? And again, when you say fare the best at the marathon, it's not just about who's going to reach the finish line first. It also includes who's going to be the most resilient, who's going to recover the fastest after the marathon and not carry it on into 2-3 days later and still whinge about how certain parts of their body is healing. Like, there is no set answer.
There's no right or wrong answer because as you said, we are so different. Everyone's DNA is different. We are created so differently in how we, I guess, approach scenarios and how we deal with. Because let's face it, everyone, in a day, there's how many things that happen to us that kind of push us back or, and some things we don't even think about that we go, oh, that was a bit of a bummer, but we don't really think about that because we've probably got that enough resilience in us to just kind of brush it past.
Yeah.
But then it'll be like one on top of the other. And then we get home and then there's something someone says and it's
a trigger.
And it just goes boom.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about that one word or that one thing, but it's been
built up.
And then all of a sudden it just explodes because it can, it just spills, like it's an overflowing glass, I think, or whatever, where you've underestimated how much
that's the thing
it can take.
Yeah. And there is a lot of value in pushing ourselves to the edge because with our yoga practice we do want to push ourselves to the edge because that's where growth happens. And lately I've been teaching a lot of yoga classes at the gym where it's very interesting because the demographic that I thought would be the least interested in yoga is actually the demographic that I'm getting a lot of who are coming more into regular practice of yoga. And that is the young males in the 20s. Who would have thought? All the buffed up guys. And, it's interesting because there are some people who I see at the gym, especially in the gym setting. Obviously, there's a big focus on the physical body. And you see people who have a lot of good physical gains in terms of their muscle toning and, how big their muscle groups are. And it's interesting because some of those people who look very similar on the physical level when they come to yoga, there are these buffed up people who can bend down, touch their toes, flex really well. And then there are some people with really, very toned triceps and traps that can't even bend over at all. And this is not a judgment game, but this is just to show you how if you're just focusing on the physical body and neglecting the remaining 6 bodies, you can't reach that full potential as a human being. That's the point that we'd like to make. And, that brings us on to the other more subtler bodies within us. So there is then the spiritual body. So, what is success? How do we define success in today's day and age?
Exactly. I mean, my definition of success would be very different to your definition of success.
Yeah.
You know,
For me,
is it all money? Is it all
Yeah.
status? Is it all how many followers you have on Instagram? Like, what is your
Everyone has
definition?
different
And it can be shifting as well. I think it's very fluid. You know, what I define as success in my 20s is very different to how I define success in my 40s. Like this morning, getting up and getting my workout done, that's success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I think, like you said, exactly on a sliding scale, like what used to be luxury for me back in my 20s, it was about wearing all these designer clothes, having these designer handbags. Yes, I was part of that. I was washed away with that way. But here I am in my 40s. And now for me, true luxury is being able to spend my time however I like to. That freedom is ultimate luxury for me.
Yeah. Because I think when we talk about things, time is one of those I think intangible things that we can never recover, right? Like time gone is like you can't just go, oh, I'll not like money where you'll go, oh, I'll earn it back, or things
Exactly.
like that. That time gone is
especially
time,
with kids growing up.
time gone is time gone. Yeah.
That bonding can't happen at a later age, unless you've invested the time and energy into it at a younger age. I mean, you can always make up for things, but it's not the same. And I think that's why, understanding these other bodies. So people who on the outer world have lots of money, fancy cars, beautiful house, mansion, but if they still feel empty on the inside, that's where the spiritual body has been neglected. So, it's that core within you that only you have access to, nobody else, that feeling of spiritual core, that center, that answer to who am I.
And I think that's where self-compassion comes in, having that compassion for yourself. Like I know as an empath myself, I'm very compassionate towards my friends, my family, everyone around me. But when it comes to self-compassion, very bad, very bad. Because sometimes, I talk to myself in my head. I would never say those things to a friend.
And I think a lot of that has to do with our conditioning as well in society, as female always being the caregiver, always in giving mode, putting others before our own needs. And sometimes we need to actually look at it and shed those layers and release those beliefs that no longer serve us and make up our identity.
Yes, and going back to about being our authentic, selves. And that's I think that's so important because nothing, I was reading somewhere that the most important relationship that you have in life is with yourself.
100%, I agree.
And that just absolutely blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind because, till this day, when you're living every single moment for other people, and we feel that other relationships are important and, things like that.
And they are, but not at the cost of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. They are important. But, shedding those layers, being self-compassionate, being your authentic self. And that authentic self can look like anything. You don't have to be this developer or this A-whiz, like, you don't have to be doing anything special to be an authentic self. You can just be a normal person, living an everyday normal life. But if that's your authentic self, you're going to be happy.
100%. And authenticity is the highest vibe that science has measured, when you're in that peaceful, joyful state. It's just you naturally tend to attract everything that is more of you when you consciously align yourself. Every decision you make, who you're surrounding with, how do you spend most of your time doing? All of these things that build up your authenticity.
And allowing yourself to, I think, um, say, say things
Speak your truth.
speak your truth, because I know a lot of us fear, they're probably thinking something else in our heads, like, oh, I wish I'd said that, because I really don't have the capacity. But I think when it comes to, we want to please other people, like, some people are people pleasers. And
I'm an ex-people pleaser.
Yeah, I am to a degree, but not to the degree that I was, and we want to make everyone like us and everyone to be happy around us. So when we're in that people pleasing mode, the only person we're not pleasing is ourselves. And I think that's when it comes is to speak the truth. Is if and you don't have to be rude or offensive about it. There's so many different ways, I think, of speaking your truth in a much articulated manner.
100%. And if the people or situations aren't aligned with that, even if they get upset, they will come back to you.
If they're meant to be in your lives. I think I have lost a lot of people along the way and through my journey. And you kind of then see people's true colors.
Yeah.
And when you reflect, you go, well, they were not aligned.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. And that's where, all this forgiveness, compassion, releasing that comes into play. It's like, how many years are you going to hold on to those things, those grudges, or are you going to let them go and move on? And invite new people who are more aligned with you into your life.
Because if your body and your mind is full of all of this useless junk and holding on to, hoarders, like we say, we hoard. If we're hoarding onto thoughts and, all of this trauma in our body, and then we're saying that nothing good is happening, well, where is the good supposed to sit? It's got no place.
Exactly right.
Because we're already full. Like, there's no space for it. So until we start to shed and push some of these things out, no matter how much, good things we're going to invite, it's going to come, but it's going to go, hey, like, where do you actually want me to sit? Or where do you want me to be? Because I ain't sitting, amongst all of that, right?
Space, yeah,
I ain't sitting in that rubbish there.
And you've just hit the nail on the spot there, Raweena, because as a trauma-informed yoga therapist, I'm not just working with the physical body, I'm working with all 7 of these bodies. And the 7th and final body that we haven't yet touched upon is your nirvanic body. So it's only when you clear out all this gunk that's sitting in all these other bodies that don't belong there anymore, that no longer serve a purpose, that's when you can actually access into your nirvanic body, because that is when everything else dissolves, including your ego, and you just go into that place of ultimate bliss, samadhi, nirvana, moksha, whatever you want to call it.
And I think those of us who have the privilege of having kids, or if we look at small kids, and we say that, they don't care who's watching them or, what they're doing. And everyone, like, I think every one of us is born that way. We're a pure soul. Like when we're born, it's only as
the gunk we collect on the way.
It's all this stuff that gets stuck along the way, because we've had little doses of things that have happened. It's whether it's social media nowadays, or workplaces, or things and relationships, and it's everything. It's life. We wouldn't be humans if we were not traveling through life.
Yeah.
because that's what we're meant to be doing. We're meant to be having this journey, but along the journey, we are, I suppose, collecting things. And many of us have lost our authentic selves. Many of us have lost our self-worth through different experiences. And I think what we are talking about, or what we're trying to promote, is just trying to microdose you guys without any drugs.
That's it. And you know what? We can give you a big dose when you attend this next event that we're hosting. So
Please tell us.
Raweena is very kindly sponsoring the next YouGa
I want to see you guys there.
workshop.
Yes.
So we're going to go really deep into one of the bodies, the intuition body.
Perfect.
And we're going to really give you some real world practical tools, because intuition, even Harvard Business Review is named intuition as one of the most important skills. Let me repeat that. Intuition is a skill that can be developed. And as with any skill, you have certain systems in place, you engage with certain tools, and you practice to get better at it. And that is our intention for you to develop the skill of intuition, which we're going to create the space in a very fun, engaging way. So this event is on the 7th of June, which
Mark
is a
your
Saturday.
calendars.
And it's at the most gorgeous location, Ritual House, if you haven't been there before.
I think we'll put the details.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll
link it.
Pop all the details below. But like-minded people, anyone who's ready to dig deeper, improve the quality of your decisions, and thrive, not just survive. Even if you want to live at 80% instead of just being 20% in your bodies, whatever is your motivation, if this speaks to you, come and join us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I know most of us, as I said, we're an autopilot.
Exactly right.
We just like move through the motions of the day, and because we know, like you said, our body, that's one part, the physical body, because it remembers there's a pattern. You know, we wake up, we brush our teeth, you know, there's a pattern. So, you know, we're doing, and it's all like doing, but we're not actually really thinking much deeper until I think we come to a crossroad or go, oh, like, what do I do now?
Exactly. Would you like to be running really fast on the wrong path? Just use that imagery and just say, or would you rather be going slow?
With Google Maps.
Yeah, go slow, but trusting your path and feeling like you're on.
It's like we're giving you Google Maps or Siri, or I don't know.
I wouldn't trust Siri.
Because then Siri will tell you to do a loop around.
Yeah, and sometimes it tells me to go right through a dead end. But anyway, you get the picture. And we're here to support you. And again, remember that trauma cannot be isolated to one single body, because, you know, we're all multidimensional beings and trauma affects us on multi-layers, so more than one body. And if you're not aware of it, how are you going to heal your trauma?
Absolutely. Because as you said, these are skills that no one really teaches us. You know, and we need to make a conscious effort, if we want to thrive in our lives, to learn these skills. Just like we need to keep learning and training if we want to get that promotion at work, or, be better in our jobs and things like that. Or, you know, people go on to get PhDs or do their masters and, you know, retrain. If we want to delve into this space and learn about ourselves and that intuition that we're talking about, you know, these are not readily available skills.
Yeah.
But so important, because the skills that they teach us, about just being comfortable, um, sometimes in the situation that you're in. How many times have we faced something and we're just going out of control because we think we need to do something right now, right there and then, because we can't like come to terms with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and emotional regulation is one of those skills that you automatically develop when you're more tuned into all these 7 bodies of yours. And that's so important. And this is just real world skills. We want to share this knowledge. We're removing all the woo woo out of it. It's going to be a very scientific,
very practical,
evidence based.
Because it teaches you even intuition. As females, we go onto dating apps or wherever. Like if we've already got partners or things like that. Everyone talks about red flags and things like that. Imagine if we were in tune and we could recognize those red flags quicker.
Better quality of decisions.
Yeah. You wouldn't have to go through 3 months when you kind of get this niggle that something's not right, but you don't want to you go, no, but I'll give them another chance. Like, even though you know that you shouldn't. Whereas, if you'll be able to put up your boundaries, you'll be able to, go, no, I'm not going to stand for this. And you'll be able to definitely improve quality of your relationships.
100%. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it's not just going to help you in one area of your life. It will definitely overflow into every aspect of your life, improving your quality of life in general.
Your workplace, because when you learn to have your boundaries, you learn to say no to things. Maybe you learn to articulate, to promote yourself better, to get that, instead of going, I should have gotten that promotion, whereas the other person got it, but maybe you didn't promote yourself. So don't feel, I think sometimes we feel guilty because we don't want to blow our own trumpet, but things like these skills help you do that in a better way.
100%.
Where you can articulate yourself, you can bring out your self-worth, you can showcase your skills without guilt.
Very beautifully said. And that is what your intuition, it is actually a superpower in today's world of AI, where AI, artificial intelligence, is taking jobs away. But imagine if you were able to tune into this innate intelligence, this I within you, this untapped potential. Your job's not going to be taken away. You're going to be able to pivot like crazy when you trust your own inner guidance, and you're not always just trusting your gut instinct, because gut instinct can be wrong, because that's an instinct. Instincts is meant to help you to survive. But if you're not tuned into what your authentic self is, that's going to actually lead you further away from where you're meant to be. And that's why intuition is so important.
Perfectly said. And I think that's where something like this workshop, I think, is absolutely
game changer.
Absolutely brilliant, because I think even in today's day and age, though we talk about boundaries and things like that, I think a lot of us are still very uncomfortable in displaying that or talking about it when we're in a public space. And especially as women who are rising up the corporate ladder and going into the corporate world, maybe it is a male-dominated environment, but you want to be seen as someone who's like a badass boss, like you want to be known as the skills you bring to the table, not because, like you're the good-looking chick or whatever who just happened to climb up the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
Like, no.
And intuition is a very, very feminine skill, because intuition, when you think about it, it's like you're going with the flow.
Mm.
And imagine you just tap into this divine feminine essence. This is what goddess energy is all about.
Yeah.
In the physical world. Even though we worship all these goddesses, the more you tune into those qualities of the goddess, you become one with the goddess.
So imagine being true to yourself, being your authentic self, and sitting in that boardroom, and instead of agreeing to things you don't agree with because of whether it's a patriarchy system or whether the boardroom is dominated by males, and you think, no, like I cannot say things because I'll lose my job. No, I think that's the most pivotal time to be your authentic self and to display like what you bring to that boardroom.
100%. And this is not just for women. Like, I think in this day and age, the males who are like the most sought after on the dating apps are the emotionally intelligent ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I love a guy who does yoga.
Yes, it's one of the signs. And, just imagine a powerful man sitting at the boardroom who is tapped into his intuition as a skill to be able to make decisions. The amount of presence and command that he'd have over the room. It's not one of like authoritative dictatorship, but it's like the kind of leader that people will automatically follow. That is next level power.
It's the type of leadership where it's, I think it's not telling people what to do, but recognizing the skills around you, and when they can bring out those skills in different individuals and then form a cohesive team,
bringing the best out in people.
And manage it towards corporate goals, or a team goal, or whatever sports goal, whatever goal they have. But I think it's about and then that's when everyone's going to be aligned, and that's one of the great skills to have.
100%. And more the merrier. Like, if you want to bring your whole team along to this, consider this a professional development workshop, because we're nearing up to the end of the financial year, and I know there's a lot of training budgets that aren't used up. This is something that will boost business productivity when you focus on innate intelligence more than anything else. And we've got so many case studies to prove it to you as well. Any last words of wisdom before we close up, Raweena?
I guess I think my last thoughts that I'd leave the audience with is, when we talk about, all of these skills and developing ourselves, I think we're not asking, I'm not asking audiences, or I do not talk about to completely reinvent yourself, so it's not about this whole new version of yourself and you're going completely bonkers and people go, oh my God, like, what are you doing? No, it's about still living your mainstream life, but within that mainstream life, because you've got to do all of that, you've got to pay a mortgage, you've got to feed people, you've got to feed yourself, we all love holidays, we've all got to go on holidays, but it's about how do we fit these skills into everyday mainstream life, thrive, I guess. And at the end of the day, we don't have to reinvent. We just have to go back to that little kid, that's authentic self, and be true to ourselves. And I think, if we were to be true to ourselves, even 90% of the time, I think there'll be less people, who are anxious, less people who are going on sick leave, less people who are just need a holiday because I just need to get away, I think. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And that is the beauty of intuition, because intuition only speaks in whispers. Only whispers. And you can only hear that
Soft.
intuition. Yeah. Only if your mind chatter or any physical pain in your body, those scream very loudly. So if you want to listen to that whisper of your intuition, you've got to quieten everything else down.
Quite that monkey brain.
100%. And, you know, the modern day yogis is not found somewhere sitting on top of a mountain meditating. The modern day corporate yogi is someone who is changing the world one person at a time, but that's starting with themselves.
Yeah,
when they
and
are
who's
in their
comfortable.
highest power.
Yeah, and who's comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. And you know, trauma informed yoga is a very modern day term. But back in the day, yoga, which is a 3,000-year-old science, basically, it was for everyone. It was not, it didn't have the intention of solving trauma. It was just a way of life. And, you know, I think this is a very more in-depth concept where people are just more trauma informed these days, especially with people being overdiagnosed. Like, I mean, it does hold its time and space and value, but there's a lot of diagnoses just being thrown out there without actual basis behind it. ADHD being one of them. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, that's a whole different podcast, but we won't go there today.
Absolutely. And of course, and medications, good for, you know, absolutely, we need them in our lives for different things. But we don't need to be over medicating ourselves either. Yeah. When some of these things can be solved by just being true to ourselves and, you know, being intuitive, because it might cost you something to invest in it now, but over the rest of your lifetime, you know, imagine investing in it now, and then when you divide it by how many years you're going to live and how many good decisions you're going to make, I think it's negligible.
Exactly right. And you know, that's the whole beauty of this. Everything is interconnected.
Because it's all you. It's the power is with you.
Yeah. And we are all about putting the power back in you. Yeah. 100%. So if you'd like to go deeper, come and join us on the 7th of June and let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you for joining us once again. And big hugs to everyone out there. And yeah, hope to see some of you soon.
Sending lots of love.
Bye.